Hello, MotoAmerica fans. It's time for another episode of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you may even learn something from this unlikely pair and their special guest. The mic is yours, Paul and Sean.
Hello, MotoAmerica fans. This is Paul Carruthers. I'm one of two hosts of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. As I said, I'm the Carruthers part. I've got the Bice part with me on the phone, on Zoom, actually, from Ohio. We talked last week, as we do every week. I don't know what number we're even up to anymore, Sean. I think it's 207 or 6 or something like that. But we've done a hell of a lot of these podcasts, and it's always enjoyable. And it's kind of what I was just talking to our guest here a second ago, and that's Max Flinders, one of our Superbike racers. And we were just talking about, he was asking me if I'd come down yet from the end of the season racing action. And it's funny because it was like when I left Barber and got home, I was like, oh, man, I'm done. I'm beat up. I'm just tired of it. And now I kind of miss it already. So it doesn't take long. You know, once you've got that motorcycle racing bug, it's impossible to get rid of. And I'm sure that's what our guest will tell us here pretty soon. But how's things with you, Sean?
Yeah, good. I'm feeling the same way. I mean, yeah, we had that little bit of time off, and it takes a couple days to recover from what we do. I mean, it's obviously a labor of love, but, you know, we work long hours on those weekends starting on Thursday through basically late Sunday night. And you get home and you and I have identified the fact that it feels like it's jet lag, but it's really not. It's something else. It's lag fatigue or whatever. But yeah, after
old age.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too. Although our 20-something guys on our team also seem to be out of it a little bit for a couple days too. So
I was just gonna say that I don't think it's age when I see what it does to those kids, you know?
Yeah, for sure. But no, and it's amazing. I mean, the season goes quick, and then when it's over, it's like, yeah, and it won't be long. I mean, we'll be back around. I know we're on the verge of announcing our season next year. I'm not going to say anything about it, but obviously some things will be similar to last year, including the way that we began. So we'll be beginning a little bit early this year. And I'm excited to have this guest on because you talked about, I think, yeah, we're up to 200 and some, 4, 5, 6, 7, something like that. And I look back and realize, man, as much as present as this guy is in the paddock, we haven't had him on this podcast since I think the third one we've done. It's been like 3 years. So we lean on the guy so much for other things in the paddock. And whenever there's a holiday, it seems like somebody gets in touch with him and says, hey, can you do some kind of a tribute type thing? But I'm glad to have him on here because we can talk to him about this season and some other stuff. So it's good that we're going to do this today.
Yeah. And then I had a neighbor was asking me too. It's funny because it kind of relates to what we were talking about, but he's like, oh, it's your off season. I bet it's probably easy and blah, blah, blah. But I find the off season more difficult, if that makes sense, because we instead of just content falling in your lap all year, it's like we've got you got to strain to come up with content on a daily basis from a series that's not racing, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely that way. I mean, trying to generate information out there and see what the guys are doing. And I mean, we've got obviously a lot of team and rider announcements for this coming year that we haven't come out yet or that'll be coming. But then there's definitely a time period where we have to generate a lot of stuff. And right now it's the case there, for a while, we don't really hear from some of the teams. They just kind of sit back a little bit. So,
well, it's like nobody seems to do anything until January, which is kind of weird. And then all of a sudden we're bombarded with stuff, but I guess enjoy the slower times while you've got them, because it definitely gets to be opposite of that. But let's chat with Max. Max has been, it's funny because I started looking at point standings and going back and I'm going back and I'm going back and I'm like, damn, when did this guy start? And he actually started in the beginning with us.
Yes, he did.
It was Super Stock 1000. And then every year since then, he's been Superbike. And I don't know, he must be freaking 40 years old by now, but I know he's not.
Right.
Well, how old are you, Max?
I'm turning 26 in November.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
that's crazy to me that you're still that young.
It
Right.
is.
I mean, I was in the Superbike class. I think I was the youngest Superbike rider when I was 18 or 19 or something like that. It was
Right.
pretty crazy.
I remember that very first test that we had at Coda 2, Max. I remember I didn't really know you, although you did race some super sport, I'm pretty sure, prior to the MotoAmerica era. But I remember at Coda seeing you, and you were out there in every session. And I didn't know a lot about you then. But yeah, you've been with us since the beginning. You're an OG, as they say.
Yeah, I guess. I think Nicole still has the video. I think I completed the first ever lap under like Moto America. Like we were the first session out and it was raining and I was like,
remember that.
I gotta figure this out. So I went out and like I did the first ever lap for Moto America and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
I remember thinking, who's that idiot?
Dude, it was bad out there too. I probably shouldn't have done that, but you know, I was young and dumb. So.
Yeah, well, we always need a guinea pig, right?
Right, exactly.
Well, the thing that amazes me is, Sean, is the fact that this guy, he comes in and he wants nothing to do with anything other than Superbike. So he goes to the Premier. He could have raced Junior Cup. He could have raced. I mean, he could have raced in any of our classes because he was eligible to race in any of our classes. But I got to give him credit because he wants to be a Superbike racer, and God darn it, he's going to be a Superbike racer, and he basically always has, it's pretty damn cool.
It's very cool. Yeah, I mean, it's great. And I think some of it, I mean, Max, I've always known you to be fairly tall, although you've probably grown in the time you've been with us, but I think you were pretty tall to begin with. But isn't it true that you did a little bit of super sport racing in AMA Pro Racing before we started?
Yeah, I mean, the year before it turned to MotoAmerica in AMA, I was doing the 600 super sport, and I was doing all right. I mean, I was competing. It was my first year pro. It was like my first year on a 600. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I mean, I was doing pretty well. I mean, I remember one race in New Jersey. It was raining, and I think I climbed all the way up to 8th, and I was like right behind, I think, Valentin de Bice. And I was like, oh, sweet. So I was doing pretty good. But after that year, my dad was just like, yo, I don't have any more money. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, you need to either find a team or you need to go get a job. And I was like, okay, let's see what I can do. And then luckily the team kind of fell in my lap, and they were going to go do the Harley XR 1200 racing first. But then when MotoAmerica came around, they were like, okay, that's going to be out now. And we're like, oh, so what are we going to do? And then the team owner just wanted me out on an American bike. And the only American bike was the EBR. So he was like, all right, let's do the EBR and the stock 1000s. I was like, I wasn't even used to the 600 yet. I just got off of a Milwaukee, and now I'm getting on like a freaking 1198 EBR. That was the most torquey thing I've ever ridden in my life. So it was pretty crazy.
I didn't even remember you. So when you were at that test at Cody, you were on an EBR?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yamaha. I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the EBR was the first one, but like the first race at Coda, I think the first race was in the rain, and I was chasing down, I think it was Elena Myers. She was doing excellent in the rain. I just caught her, passed her, and I was running real good. And then I just went into, I think, the fast back section and high-sided to the moon. And you know how like the fuel tank is in the frame on the EBR and the airbox is the tank? Well, the airbox just absolutely obliterated. It was in 20 million pieces, and we were like, oh, that's not good. So luckily an EBR dealership in, Coda, they gave me an airbox, and then the next day EBR shut down and went bankrupt. So
yeah,
and that bike was yellow too, right?
Bright yellow, yeah.
Yeah, that's where. Yeah, I didn't even know for 4 years after that you weren't still on the Buell.
Right.
and were you at that time already associated with Tim Ivanhoe? I always call him Ivan Timho in my head. I don't know why. But Tim
sounds
Ivanhoe,
like a pirate name.
Yeah, doesn't it? Well, he looks like a pirate. So what are you gonna do, right? But were you associated with him way back then as well?
Actually, yeah, when I was racing with USGPRU before AMA, and then when I came to AMA, I always knew Tim because we were both in Louisiana. So we went to a lot of the close racetracks together. And me and him actually took our race school together when I was 12 and he was a lot older. So
That's a good way to put it.
yeah. So we actually met then. And then like, since we did the race school together, every time I saw him, I was just like, what's up? Hey, how you doing? Da, da, da. And then we became like race friends almost. And then, like I said, 1 year in AMA, they one of their XR 1200 riders couldn't compete. So they asked me if I ride because Tim knew me. He's like, hey, this team needs a rider. And I was like, yeah, for sure. I think I did better than he did that whole season on my first time on the 1200. And I was like, oh, and then that's how I kind of got my job. It was a good interview for sure.
And also, Max, tell people, I don't remember if the last time, and it's been so long, we can repeat it anyway, but I don't recall if we did or not mention, but tell people, I don't know if people really understand the origin of why your bike is yellow. So tell that story. It's an awesome.
So yeah, Tim works at a helicopter company in Louisiana, and when he was racing, every time he had his body work, he'd bring it in, and they paint a lot of the helicopters yellow, and they're just like, hey, after you're done with that helicopter, can you spray some race body work? So they started painting all the race body work yellow, and then Tim loved it. I mean, it's his favorite color now. Like, if you go to a store and there's something that's yellow, it's a good chance it's going to end up in the cart and like on the way to the door. So yeah, man, it's just kind of stuck. They still kind of paint our stuff. I've even started painting stuff yellow now and everything. I mean, it's cool. And then also it's kind of just part of our team now, you know. It was kind of a cool story at first with the helicopter stuff, and then now it's just like we're the bright, happy team, and everyone can see us on track because we're trying to stand out. So it's just kind of the way it goes.
Well, it definitely works because that bike, we can see it no matter where you are.
Yeah, definitely.
So I looked at these results. I think your best year, it's not really fair to say that that's your best year because everything's just gotten there's so many more fast guys now than there were back when you were finishing like 12th in the championship or 13th in the championship. What do you, when you look back at it, the year you just had, how does that rank? Because it was by far the most competitive season of Superbike racing that we've had in MotoAmerica. And as I just said, there's a ton of fast guys, so you can't really compare it to 2018 or even 2019. You got to compare it to now. Do you still feel like I mean, it's obviously, to me, watching you on the track, you're improving and you're faster, but that doesn't necessarily show in the point standings, is my point.
Yeah,
Max, I'm going to interrupt you for a minute. Sorry, I got to jump in just for a second. Paul, I'm going to answer this partially for Max, and I'm going to see if I can predict this. Okay. I'm going to say that this was absolutely Max's best year ever because I think he went the fastest he's ever gone this year. Max, what say you?
Yeah, actually, you did kind of read my mind. I mean, yeah, I always kind of judge my times and everything from the previous years. This year, I've been nearly a second or more faster than at every track. I've been closer to Gagne than I've ever been. I mean, it's definitely been my best year. It's just like you said, it's so competitive. I mean, you had the Titler's team coming in, and those guys brought the show. I mean, they brought in how many BMWs, beautifully prepared, fast as anything. They brought those in. We had a lot of teams just come in. Hayden Gillum came in full time, and back when he was racing with JD Beach, he's an excellent rider. He sticks his elbows out, leaves it all on the track. So when I saw it all lining up, I mean, this is the most Superbikes you've ever had. I've been the fastest I've ever been, but yeah, man, it's just a really tight competitive class out there. I mean, this year I would gain 0.5 of a second and move up like 4 spots. In 2018, if I gained 0.5 of a second, I was sat exactly where I was before I gained the time. So it's definitely way closer this year, more competitive. But then again, the racing's just been really, really good this year. I've had an absolute blast.
Well, this year you've actually, not that you haven't in past years, but like you said, there's more competitive guys. There's a deeper field. You probably find yourself in races more often than in other races. Am I right? I mean, as far as battling?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been in constant battles. I've been with Corey Alexander a bit, Travis Wyman. I've been battling with Brandon Posh. I mean, there's definitely all those people around you, and like it pushes you even more. I mean, when you're on track and you're in a race and you've got like 2 seconds to the guy in front of you because he's flying, and then the guys behind you are like a second back, you're kind of in that no man's land, and it's hard to push yourself there because, like, you can't see the guy in front. You've got no threat from behind. You start overthinking. You start riding differently. But when you're in a battle, all you're thinking is, how am I going to get by this guy? Am I faster than this guy? He's better here. I'm better there. And like, you start learning from them, and then it becomes like this kind of chess game where you have to think of exactly what you're going to do. You have to set it up for the next 3 corners to pass them, and it makes you a better rider throughout. So it's definitely been a big learning year for me, for sure.
Yeah. So Max, I want to ask you about something. And Paul knows this morning, I've got a little bit of a red ass today about something. I'm not happy, and I'm going to absolutely rip
Well, that's
it
because
here.
the day ends in Y.
No, that's right. That's true. No, I'm usually a pretty happy-go-lucky guy, but I'm pissed off.
That's true. You are.
I'm pissed off because how the hell does somebody that works for MotoAmerica put out some kind of news leak? Give me a break.
Sean.
I'm just going to say it. But okay, Max, there was a news leak. I'm doing air quotes right now because we didn't know about this, and we don't have a leaky MotoAmerica. But anyway, I'm going to mention this to you. Have you seen the report? And supposedly there's going to be a 2 Superbike rule. You can have another bike this year. And I want to find out how it relates to you because, I mean, you fall down sometimes. I know it. And you guys do an amazing job rebuilding your bike. Are you going to take advantage of that? Will you have 2 bikes if the rule allows it? And do you think it's economical for you with your program? Tell us how you feel about that whole thing if it does come to pass.
I mean, honestly, it hurts us a little bit, but then it kind of helps us as well. I mean, like, since we are such a small team, if we do have a big issue where the bike is completely broke, can't ride it, and the race is in 2 hours, I'm not going to make that race. I don't have the people. I don't have the time. So, I mean, having another bike there just to hop on and be comfortable with, that will help me in certain ways. But then again, I mean, my A bike is a 2020 and my B bike's a 2015. So if I do end up getting on my 2015, I'm not going to be nearly as competitive because it doesn't quite have all the new things that the 2020 does. I mean, but I've seen it before where some riders come in, like I've seen, like when Tony Elias was on the Suzuki, they came in and their motor blew, and like they're like, there's no way we can ride this bike. And a couple of times, and it happened with me too, MotoAmerica are like, okay, if you promise you're not going to get back on that bike, you're good to go on the other bike. And it happened to me in California too, where I blew a motor and like nothing, I couldn't switch anything over from the 15 to the 2020. And they let me go on my other bike to go out and race. So, I mean, I don't think it will really change too much. But, I mean, the fact that these guys can, go out on one bike and then come in, hop in another bike and go out again without having to waste any time and just get test after test after test after test on different setups, that will be a little bit unfair to me because we won't be able to do that at all.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I know in the past when we've had this 2 bike rule, I mean, they would essentially, like for a 2-rider team, they would bring 4 bikes out and have that other one ready. Would you have a situation like that, or you would not bring 2 bikes to the wall and have one ready as a backup and ride them back and forth in your sessions to kind of test them out? You would focus on that primary bike, but you'd have that one fully built and ready in case something disastrous happened. Is that how it would go?
Yeah, exactly. It would be like the worst case scenario, I have to get on the other bike. So I mean, it's going to be kind of like MotoGP, where if you crash now and your bike's bad, you're going to have to race back to the pits to get back onto another bike. But I won't have to race back because the other bike will still be in the truck. So
right. That's what I want to know, and tell us, because I don't know if this is giving anything away, Max, or if it's anything about, I mean, let's talk, it's the past season, so I don't know, but how did this actually work? Could you not have a fully built bike somewhere in the truck in your trailer, but just not seen? Or were you literally not able to have a second bike on the premises?
No, you were allowed to have a second bike, because like if you get into the situation where your bike is just no longer rideable and it won't be rideable for the rest of the weekend, they do let you switch bikes every now and then, but you have to ask very, very nicely. But yeah, no, we had another bike in our truck. It's allowed to be there, but it's not allowed to be out of the truck or be seen. Or if it is out of the truck, it has to be behind the truck with a cover over it. So you're not just like switching bikes every 2 seconds. So there was some rules about it. Like, so we just left it in the truck, but we kept ours mainly as like rolling spares. Like if I broke a handlebar, we just go take it off the other bike real quick or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing is, I don't know how it adds up. You are part of an integral part of your team and understand the financial side of it. I mean, if you have a bike plus a frame and spares for another bike, I mean, is it any different? Is it different to have a fully constructed and built bike, or is it kind of the same? It's a wash either way.
I mean, I like having the full built bike because you know, like you can see what part you need off of it and you know exactly where it is on the other bike. If I have a bunch of parts in a bunch of boxes, me and my dad are going to fight a lot because we won't be able to find anything.
Oh, yeah.
And then I mean, you've seen our truck. We got a bigger truck for sure, but it's still nowhere near as organized as like those 18-wheelers where they have a drawer just for suspension and stuff. So that's why we kind of keep the rolling spares. But I mean, it is kind of nice to have everything like separate and by itself, because you can just grab it and go, where we have to go to the bike, take it off, then run back to the other bike and put it back on. But either way, I mean, if you're quick with your hands, it's not really that big of a deal.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a big benefit to you if you had another bike just like your A bike sitting there, the same year, same condition, etc.
Oh yeah, if that was the case, that'd be really, really nice. Then we could do double testing and do everything. But I know with our team and our budget, we won't be able to get another 20 or a new motorcycle next year. So we'll we'd just be working with the one and just trying to make that the best we can for the weekend.
Yeah, I think the way I look at it, I think it's a good thing, and I've said it from the beginning that I didn't necessarily like the one bike rule, and I'm not talking about from the cost standpoint or something like that, but I think having a two bike rule is a safer option. I don't think when Gagne crashes his bike and his perfectly able professional crew has to throw something together really quick, I don't worry about it not being put together correctly. But, you know, when you've got some kid down at the other end of the paddock and his dad's putting it together with his brother, they may not be that competent when they have time. I worry that when there's a rush job that something gets missed and it turns into a safety issue. That's why I've always thought the two bikes was a good idea. But
yeah, I could see that. With like Gagne's bike in Coda, like how he rode it around that warm-up lap and he came in, he's like, this thing's not right at all. Like, right. It would have been nice, especially when people are spending a lot of money to go racing, and the fact that they couldn't just jump on another bike and they missed the race, that's a big disappointment for the whole team. And
also, it's a disappointment for the fans who've paid money to watch Jake Gagne race. They didn't come there to watch Jake Gagne sit on the sidelines.
Right, exactly.
So Max, explain, if you would, this other rule that's kind of going to come into play, I guess, and it sort of came out around the time or was talked about when the attack team, the how do we put it, fresh and lean progressive Yamaha racing team is going over to race in Portimao this weekend, and they are going to adapt that transmission rule or allowance that they have over there, and I think it has to do with a ratio that you can choose, but also something to do with a lockout for neutral and having neutral at the bottom of the gear. Do you understand the rule? And if you do, can you explain that to us and tell us if that's something you're going to use next year?
I sure hope so. I mean, I love that rule. It's I mean, you've seen it a lot this year. I mean, I crashed in Brainerd because of a false neutral. Cam Peterson went flying off the track at the Ridge because of a false neutral. People are constantly going off of track because of false neutrals, and the new transmission kind of just eliminates that. So the neutral's at the bottom. As soon as you click first gear, you lock out neutral, and then there's no possible chance for you to get back into neutral until you unlock it. So it just pretty much eliminates all false neutrals. You won't see people going into corners, not being able to stop. It's good for a safety reason, 100%, because I mean, I've crashed multiple times because of it. And then other than that, though, I mean, they have this new ratio thing that's going around, which you can change the ratios and stuff. But I think they're having it so you pick a ratio at the start of the year, and that's it. Like that's the only.
That's how World Superbike does it.
Right. So if that's the case, I don't see it really being like I mean, it might suck for some people being like, "Oh, dude, we chose the wrong ratio," but saying that we go to 10 different tracks, the ratio is going to change. I mean, like, obviously the ratio might be really, really good for, Road America and then terrible for Barber. So I think it's a really good idea. I hope I can get my hands on the system to get it in my bike, because I hate false neutrals with a passion. But other than that, I think that it'll just be a good safety thing.
Yeah, no, tell us, Max, and tell the fans. I guess I don't really completely understand what a false neutral is, because when I've been on a street bike on a clunky transmission or something, I've had situations where I've been in a higher gear and all of a sudden I get caught between gears or something, and then you're in trouble. You pull the clutch in and then it grinds or whatever. When you hit a false neutral, does that mean you literally go down into that neutral part of the transmission?
Yeah, exactly. So it normally happens between second and first. The Yamaha, the first couple years, had an awful time with it. Like, if you tried to go from second to first, it would just go into neutral every time, to the point that the Westby team, I don't know if Attack Yamaha did, but like me and Westby, we tuned our bikes so we would just stay from second to sixth. We would never touch first. So what happens pretty much is you'll be coming down the gearbox and you'll click it, and either you don't click it crisp enough, hard enough, whatever, but it just pops into neutral. And we're on the ragged edge all the time. We're braking as hard as we can to get into corners, and we use a lot of engine braking too. So if we're going into a corner and we're using full engine brake, full front brake, and we're just making it every time, if you go into that same corner, go full brake, and then take the engine brake away, you enter the corner at nearly 20 mile an hour faster. Like, it's ridiculous. You get so much speed going into there because you're just like, your rear wheel is just freewheeling into the corner, and there's no excess like engine braking to help slow you down.
So this is an epiphany for me. I literally thought that you can get caught in between a higher gear. That doesn't happen. You've never gotten caught like between fourth and fifth or something?
It's happened to me a couple times, but it's not as often. Normally, if I do it in like that scenario, if I'm like switching between like fourth and fifth, it will normally, if I try to go from fourth to fifth and I don't quite do it correctly, it'll pop back down into fourth. Okay. But it never really hits the neutral area from like that high up. It's happened before, I think, but normally when it happens, I just kind of focus on what I'm doing. I don't even remember what gear I'm in. So
yeah, I mean, that really helps me to understand, because when I've heard this year, and you've mentioned it, I mean, you mentioned the situation with Cam Peterson that I absolutely remember. False neutral, I was thinking, okay, false neutral must mean it truly must not be in neutral, but it technically is in neutral. It's just you didn't want it to be in neutral at that point.
Exactly. When you think about it, I mean, neutral's stupid anyway. I mean, it's like, right. I mean, it's really, when even on a street bike, you use neutral if you're at the stoplight and you don't want to hold the clutch in, or you want to, I don't know, do whatever, change the station on your radio or something. But I mean, other than that, I mean, it shouldn't exist anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I was, like I said, at Brainerd, I was going to have my highest finish of the year. I was in 8th place comfortably. Andrew Lee, Brandon Posh, and I think Travis Wyman were battling behind me, and I was trying to chase down the next guy, and I was comfortable, and I would have, like I said, it would have been my best finish. My dad was super happy coming into the turn, the tight left-hander in front of like the hot pit lane, false neutral, straight off track and crashed. And I was like, really? I was really bummed. I mean, I was still happy with the weekend with how it come out, but there's honestly, unless there's a lot of runoff, you can't really do anything about it. And at Brainerd, as you guys know, like there isn't much runoff, so you have to like lock the rear up and just lay the bike down. And if it's okay, you can get back up and keep going. But half the time, you know, the handlebar will break or foot peg will fall off or something like that.
So this switch that Jake Gagne demonstrated in a video that we ran on our social media, are you going to put that exact apparatus on your R1 next year?
I hope so, but it also depends on the price. I don't think they're going to be too expensive. So if it isn't, I'm 100% getting it. But it also depends if we have to tune it or anything. We have to check it out and read on it a little bit more. I know, you know, the Attack Yamaha team are still kind of like in the process of like working on it and making it right for their bike. I think they've got it nearly nailed, but yeah, we're going to have to talk to Richard and see if it's applicable to our bike or if it's what's going on with it. But yeah, if I can get it, it's going to be on my bike for sure.
Yeah, well, all you have to do is factor the cost into crash damage and see how many crashes you'd have to have before it paid for itself.
Exactly. I think
Not to mention what the body goes through.
Yeah, dude, I think I had 3 crashes last year from this year from false neutrals. So yeah, I think it will be definitely a benefit.
So Max, is it too early to kind of announce this? I mean, is the People's Rider going to be back next year? Are you going to be racing in our series?
I sure hope so. I mean, I've been telling everyone I have to figure out my health insurance. I turned 26 in November, and luckily my dad kept me on his health insurance this long, but I'm getting kicked off November 9th, and I got to figure that out, because without health insurance, if I mess myself up, go to the hospital, I'm gonna be in debt for the rest of my life. So if I can get that figured out, there'll definitely be a yellow bike out there. But then also, I mean, I've been talking, some other teams have been talking with me and everything. So I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen next year, but I hope I'm out there for sure.
Does it make sense from a cost standpoint to do one of those rides where basically somebody, whether it's a David Anthony or somebody along those lines, I don't know how cost effective it is to doing a program like that where they basically haul all your stuff and you use their shop or their truck and everything once you're at the event. Does that work out to be a better deal than what you do by going it alone?
It honestly depends. Like for some people, if you don't have the truck and if it's just the rider and the motorcycle, I think it's definitely the way to go. Like David Anthony's, me and him have talked quite a bit about doing something like that, but we always kind of average it out. I mean, with me driving this and sleeping in the truck and just paying for gas, what he was asking for us to come in with, it averaged out a bit. And then Tim also wanted to keep the yellow. So right. With the Superbike rule, if you're under the same tent, you have to have the same livery, like when San Bernardino did it. So we would have to go with the Fly Racing, which, I mean, the bike looks great, but with it being about the same cost as what we're doing now, and the fact that we get to keep the yellow, that was always kind of our decision to go that way.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, and I do know for a fact, just from talking to Dave this year, that I think it's the case. He said he wasn't going to have Fly Racing next year, so I don't know how that affects his livery, but I've actually every year, Max, kind of felt a little bad for you, because I know you've always pined for being on a team to see how that would be to, go, share data and get more of an understanding on identical or similar bikes. So I've always wanted this to happen at some point. And like Paul said, I mean, even M4 has some things. I know Liam Grant had a deal where he raced with them this year, or there are several teams where people do that. I mean, you think about even Disrupt Racing, you know, they've got Hayden Gillum, but, you know, they may want to have another rider. It seems like there's some riders out there or teams out there that might want to have another rider. So maybe there's an opportunity, but I hear where you're at with Yellow, and you have such an iconic sort of signature and brand there. I mean, you know, I know that you know this, but you're one of our most popular riders on our social media and everything else. I mean, every time we put something out with you, it goes crazy. So you got much love in there, but sometimes that much love doesn't really pay the bills all the time. So
yeah, that's how me and my dad talk a lot. It's like dad's always like, it's good being the friendliest team in the paddock, but like we need some more results, because that's what's gonna pay the bills, get me on a better team, and do that kind of stuff. So I'm glad that I've kind of built this fan base that hopefully will stick with me no matter where I go. Hopefully they don't just all love yellow, and if I switch to a different color, they'll hate me. But yeah, I don't know. I've been talking to some teams and stuff. It's just, the only thing is, it's like, you know, I'm the truck driver. I do everything for this team pretty much. My dad does the mechanicking. So if I switch teams, Thrashed Bike Racing, I don't know if they'd even be out there next year, which would be a disappointment. But then also a lot of the teams, they're not just asking for riders, they're asking for riders and then to pay some as well.
yes.
Where I'm riding with this team, I'm not paying to ride, but I pay my dues with the driving and like setting up and tearing down. Like I'm pretty much part of the crew. And Tim pays the hard bills. So I don't know, man. I don't know if I'd have the money to pull out of my own pocket to go race on another team, because I don't expect Tim to pay me to go ride for another team. Like, I just don't see that happening. So I don't know. I'm going to talk to a lot of people, see what I can figure it out. But like I said, dude, racing's my passion. I love it so much. So we'll see. I'm hoping to be out there next year for sure.
Well, we can't not have old Yeller.
No, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And, you know, Max, I mean, there are some riders from time to time, this may be against your philosophy. I know several riders don't want to do it this way, but, you know, there's crowdfunding type stuff too. Is that just something you don't feel is fair to foist upon your fans, or?
I mean, I have quite a few fans that we've been doing donations through t-shirts at the last couple rounds, where like, you know, if you donate $20 to the team, you get a t-shirt, do like that kind of stuff. But like a lot of people say, you know, the GoFundMe and stuff. I've just never, you know, I'm living my dream. I don't have any issues in my life. I'm just racing a motorcycle and having a great time. And like the GoFundMe thing, I'd rather, if I was doing a GoFundMe, I'd want to do it for someone who actually like is in need, you know, like if someone can't pay their hospital bills, I'd do a GoFundMe for them, because, you know, they need that money to get them through. Where if people gave their money to me, you know, besides a sponsor, like if a sponsor wanted to, you know, sponsor the team, that's completely fine. But like just my fans who are normal people, like just giving me $20 out their pocket to help me keep racing, I just never really saw that as a good way to go, if that makes sense.
That's the best thing I've heard all week, Max. No, seriously, I honestly get mad when people do that. Like, you know, hey, I want a new bicycle, right? But if I don't have the money to get a bicycle, I'm gonna have to save up and buy a bicycle. I can't go. I'm not going to do a GoFundMe to buy me a new bicycle when there's a kid that's dying of cancer that needs the money.
Right, exactly. Like, if you're going to donate to GoFundMe, I want you to help somebody that actually needs help. Like,
right. I don't need a new bicycle.
Right. Yeah, I want one, but there's no need. Right. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we're good with that then.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And I knew that's where your heart was on this stuff too, Max, and that's an honorable thing. Hey, I want to change subjects for a minute, because one of the things that we love about you is you make a point to encourage riders in the other classes in our series. I mean, I always see you out on the grid in almost every class out there at the starting grid, you know, talking to different riders or giving them a handshake or whatever, high five. So I know you pay attention to this series. This is a pretty broad question, but out of this entire championship, all of our series, all of our classes this year, what one class, rider, or championship either delighted you or surprised you the most this year? Besides Superbike. And I guess if you want to say Superbike, you can, but I mean, is there one? I mean, and I'll throw some stuff out there. It was amazing that we had two classes that were tied on points. Stock 1000.
Dude, yeah.
And, yeah. I mean, and they were tiebreakers.
Yeah, I mean, the stock 1000, the fight between Corey and Gillum, that was pretty intense. But I mean, I've always loved the Junior Cup, like the kids fighting and doing their thing. Kayla has been absolutely outstanding this year. She's really shown what she can do, and she blew me away, really. I mean, she got taken out quite a bit, which is unfortunate, but she was riding outstanding. I mean, and then you got Cody Wyman in the same class, who's also riding really, really well, like almost riding like he needs to ride next year. And I think he's probably got himself one with the way he rode. But that's been a really fun class to watch this year. I mean, you got Max Van battling in there. You got Kayla, you got Cody, you got all these guys just wanting to win. And like, you can tell that they're the fight, they have the most fight in them. They want this more than anything, because they're just trying to show what they can do to get onto that next team. I mean, I'm still looking at getting teams as well, but like everyone's looking at the younger generation coming up, and that's been a really, really fun race to watch. It's been really, really good.
You know, Max, you're such a student of the sport and of MotoAmerica, and I know, heck, we know that you were named after Max Biaggi, so you know, we know it's born into you from your father and mom on up. This is down the road. We've probably asked you this before too, but you know, in this conversation, it always makes me think you could absolutely slide into a situation like Roger Hayden or be involved in our side of the equation in promoting the series or doing some broadcast stuff, commentary, or stuff like Josh Hayes does. Do you see yourself doing that in the future? Do you see yourself managing a team? Is there something, I mean, will you continue to have an involvement in road racing and or MotoAmerica?
I don't know. I mean, I'd always want to be around racing, and I'd love to do, you know, talk to the riders and talk about the riders. I mean, I know every single one of them, just because every time they're going out on the grid, I go say, hey, even new people. It's funny though, because like sometimes I walk up to people and I'm like, oh, hey, good luck in the race. And like, you too. And I'm like, I'm not really in this race, but I'll let it slide this time. But nah, I mean, it would be really, really cool. I mean, Roger's doing a great job, and knowing everything that he knows, he's been like very factual. He's been telling, I mean, he's an absolute whiz with like track records. It's crazy how he knows all of them. But no, I would love to. I mean, I love everyone who works with MotoAmerica. You guys are awesome. So like to try and stay in it and do something like that would be amazing. But then there's also the other side where I don't know if I'd cry if I was at a racetrack and not racing. Like, that just sounds really difficult to me. I know Roger Hayden's in that state where, you know, he's having fun with the family, you know, he's all the kids and everything, and he's just in a good place where I still think I could win a championship. So I don't know. It would be really cool to get in with MotoAmerica and do something, but I'll have to start being nicer to some of the MotoAmerica people, I guess.
We're always looking for a third host of our podcast. So.
There you go.
Heck yeah, I'm down.
There's Bice and Flinders. Oh my God, it just comes right off the tongue perfectly there.
Carruthers or Bice could die at any time too. So.
yeah. And for Roger Hayden, who I know listens to our podcast, we weren't trying to take your job away, Roger, nor were we trying to do anything with Josh either. But just saying, you know, I mean, this series is growing, and I know that they always like to have some people come up there in the booth and help out from time to time. And Max, I know you're a good an analyst of racing, and as you said, you know every rider out there, which is a tremendous and terrific that you do that. I mean, it's really good, even if they don't know what class you're in. And I love the fact that you get to know them. So
it's Max and Richard Varner out there on the grid.
That's right. That's right. Well, man, we went. I didn't even get to half the stuff we were going to talk to you about. We were going to kind of do a review of the season, which is why I threw that thing in about, was there any particular class? But, you know, we've run out of time, Max. I mean, you're just a great person to have a conversation with. And thank you for being on with us and for explaining that false neutral thing to me. Like I said, it opened my eyes. I finally understand that. And about the two bike rule that apparently is coming out. You know, we'll stay in touch with you during this off season. We're probably going to hit you up and ask you to, I don't know, let us know what's in your Christmas stocking or whatever.
We'll make him do some silly video.
Oh yeah, you know I'm always down to put a Santa suit on and do something. So.
That's right.
Exactly. But yeah, thanks for joining us. And Paul, it was another good one for us. We'll keep it going. We'll have another one next week with another guest. But thanks again, Max, and have a great day.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Y'all are awesome. I'll catch y'all later.
All right. Thank you.